The first trial application that we're going for is a blanket coverage of the MDB, particularly for use in the National Water Account in the first instance. We're trialling that for application around this September using these sites that I've got up on screen here in the first instance, and then we'll be trying to develop that subsequently for use in further national water accounts. It is applied in other areas across Australia, but we're focusing on the NDB in the first instance to show the methodology. Finally, there's this simplistic representation of groundwater in there at the moment, allowing these various aspects to be modelled. I'll skip that and just go to the end. So we're currently at the point of bringing the whole system together and basically pulling those different L, R and G components together. That's going to be done this final year of WARATA. That includes a national water balance model, which is calibrated nationally. I don't think that's been done anywhere, at least not in Australia, but I don't know where else in the world that's been done. It's quite exciting. It performs very well against peer methodologies, I think. We'll be having the river model being deployed across the NBB and other selected areas. That's ORA R. We're looking to use that definitely in NWA 2013. That's a year and a half away. But possibly within NWA 2012 if things work out. And I think there's a whole bunch of different possibilities that are open to us with all the different agencies coming on board at the moment with using Source. And I think there's just a few conversations that are going to take place to try and bring these different aspects together and basically leverage all the development that's gone on to date and try and rationalise some of the modelling that is being undertaken. Firstly, we're working to align with the simplified MDB river modelling that's being undertaken in CSIRO, which we talked about this afternoon. But moreover, we want to work towards consistent reporting across agencies, I think, and using the same tool, which is a constant theme we've been hearing today. I'll just note there's a few gaps in the system that we do have currently that need to be undertaken with further research or development elsewhere, particularly on the urban side, but farm dams we're not doing ourselves at the moment as part of the system. Assimilation, there's others as well. So just highlighting there's a whole host of opportunities for different agencies to work here. Yeah, I think there's I'll leave it at that. Thanks, Grace. Thanks.
So I'd like to introduce, it might say Matt Stenson on there, but it's going to be Dave Penton. I think he's also going to be showing up a little later this afternoon as well.
Not sure which one to use. The big one? Okay. Oh, thank you, Grace, for introducing me. My name's Dave Penton and I work for CSIRO around the technical implementation of the AURA system. Matt would have liked to have been here to give this presentation, but he had to pull out at the last minute. However, it's given me the opportunity to fiddle with his slides, so there's something in that. In this talk... Oh, are you? Okay. Better watch out. In this talk, I'll give some technical details around the AURA model, the source command line, and calibration techniques. So Andrew's given us some basic details on the AURA system. It's continental scale. The landscape modelling component, that is a rainfall runoff component, runs a 5-kilometre grid cell. It's an attempt to match observations with models where there aren't observations. It's comprised of a number of modelling steps and data processing streams, and it's orchestrated by a workflow engine. And as you saw there, it gives you a time series of runoff across the continent. It has a number of components. That first one is for landscape processes. So it's a gridded model. It covers hydrology. It's a gridded hydrological model. It covers processes like the evapotranspiration, the solar days, all those kinds of things to work out what the runoff is. The part of the system which I'll talk more about today, because I think it's of interest to us, is the river runoff component. So we've been using source to model different reaches. We're not interested in any of the management. We're just interested in trying to get a better handle on how much evaporation or how much rainfall is landing on floodplains or reaches or the river itself. We need to know, to do our modelling, we need to know diversions. We need to use gauging station information. We need to know how much water is coming out of reservoirs. We model each reach using the same template model. So we've got a simplified model of our reach, which we apply for every reach, as I'll go into a little bit later on. Recently, we've begun adding the groundwater components. Part of the water balance that people are interested in is how much water moves as fluxes into the groundwater system, how much water moves as a flux into the river in some places. This conceptual diagram shows the landscape component, the rainfall runoff, providing information to the recharge component that provides information to the reach modelling component about how much water is coming in from floods. The reach modelling component provides information about how much is lost from the river into the groundwater system. The groundwater system moves lateral groundwater stores between Aura L cells. So each 5 kilometre grid cell has a groundwater store, and the Aura G model will move water between those stores. So of interest to us is the work that's been done on the source external interface. This is a diagram of what we might have imagined the system looking like some years ago. And the aim of it was to break apart the user interface. A similar diagram here shows where we've got the source modelling engine. This is the stuff that does routing. This is the stuff that will model the evaporation off the storage. This is the stuff which everybody's familiar with from the user interface. But instead of using the graphical user interface to run the model, we use the graphical user interface to build the model. Then we use the command line interface to access the source modelling engine to run simulations on the historic sequence. And that's brought about a series of other advancements on the modelling engine, so web interfaces and OpenMI interfaces. So to take you into some of the detail, if you pick up the latest version of eWater's source and you take it to the command line, you'll get this new terminal window where you can run the river system command line. And I think I had a question earlier on, how do I do that? It's really quite simple. You just go to the directory that you have installed, you run the command line, it'll pop up there and wait for you to send instructions to it in another command line. And that's how we use it in the Aura system. We have one of these clients for every reach that we're modelling, and we're modelling 190 of these reaches. So we have 190 of these setups, each modelling one reach. To do the communication, we use WCF and command line implementation, which is further called by Delfuse, which we use to orchestrate our modelling. Okay, so how the details are of interest to us here. So we've got an example here of the Barwon catchment where we've got one reach that we're modelling. In this area, we've got a gauging station at Moonee River. We've got a gauging station at Barwon River. We've got a gauging station at Gilgil Creek. And we've got one gauging station downstream at Mogul. There you go, Mogul McGill. This is this area here is all part of the landscape model's rainfall runoff, and that provides lateral inflow to our model. We've got observations at those 3 gauges there, and we can test the accuracy of our model by seeing how much flow would be observed at the Barwon River. Obviously, you can see from the satellite image the areas of irrigation and the green patches. So that provides the diversions. So there are our gauges, and here's our template model. So we've got the observed gauges up the top. We've got the lateral inflow from the rainfall runoff model. We've got any storage measurements. There aren't in this case. We've got a model of diversions. So that's all good for one reach. How do we model all of Australia? At the moment, we've calibrated 190 reaches. You can see the area that's covered in that. A lot of calibration there. It was all done manually. Data was compiled manually. Calibration was done in R. That's clearly not where we want to be in the future, but that's what was done for this exercise. We want to see GeoFabric up and running to make our lives easier. Oh, it's a language, yeah. Yeah. It's something that hydrologists understand, but it's not. Each of the reach is assigned an identifier, and corresponding parameters are stored in a text file for the whole system. The topology is also stored in text files. They're the way of the future. Delfuse orchestrates data, landscape modelling and reach modelling. There's one modelling engine for each reach, and each time step, or L, the landscape component will run for the whole of Australia, then or R will run for the whole of Australia, setting up each of those reaches inputs. We want to advance the way we do our calibration, so we don't need to use R. For that, we're using eWater source and the Trident workflow system. This is another version of the template model. In this, we have observations for a particular reach. We have the inflows. We have the modelled outflow. That's what we want to represent. If we were able to model that perfectly, we'd have an idea that our model was either a fudge or it was a perfect representation of the river system. We want to change the parameters in the model, so those things there. It's hard to read, but there's attenuation and lag parameters in the system. They're what we want to parameterize our model with. So we want to pick a model that produces outflows that closely match gauged outflow. The process is to pick parameter values, run the model, compare the output to the gauge flow, and score the parameters. Fairly rudimentary way of doing calibration. We do auto calibration. So we're actually calibrating on the inflow attenuation, or we're actually calibrating on velocity, I think, which is then fed into an equation for attenuation and general loss. And we calibrate a rainfall runoff scaling factor. So we've got a model definition, we've got an objective definition, and we've got a search space definition, and we use those to provide our Trident calibration workflow with enough information to run. So they're our calibration definition. We put it into 2 genetic algorithms to try and work out the best parameter space, shuffled complex evolution, which copes with a wide variety of it will search a space where it won't get trapped into local optima. Then Rosenbrook, where it will refine the solution to get something a little bit better. In the Aura-L, this workflow is used for Aura-L and Aura-R. It's linked up to some benchmark reporting bench cards, which you can see in the background there. Okay, and where we're up to, we want to improve on our observations. We want to improve on our modelled values where we don't have observations, and to do that we're looking at using data assimilation. That's using observations from satellites as well as from other data sources. There's Aura L is the most mature, Aura R is coming along behind, and Aura G is the newcomer and requires more work. I think we also need to do more work on a linked calibration of the entire model rather than just individual components. We suspect that that will give us better results, more accurate numbers. Uncertainty analysis is always important and always seems to be tagged onto the end. That's giving us an idea of how wrong we might be. Cast of thousands, as with a lot of these projects, I'll leave that up for people's interest. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. So we've got now time until afternoon tea for questions. Both Andrew and Dave, so please fire away. Has someone seen how good afternoon tea is?
In a 5-kilometre wind pattern, you must have a fair amount of variation in like soil and landfall and that type of thing. How do you get lump those?
Thank you. Good question. I really don't know. Do you know?
That is a good question. We attempt to use the data we've got. We interpolate for climate data and use soil information from ASRIS and such for input into the Aura system as well. But you just got to use the data that you got and smooth it in some fashion and test whether that actually improves your predictions for the things that you want. So we basically test the inputs and see if that makes an increase in improvement in the predictions that we're after.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Michael Finger from GHD. I just had a question. You talked about the calibration for sort of the three components being done together. How have they been calibrated to date? Like on a 5K grid, how would you calibrate to say groundwater levels for that hour G or?
Sorry. So yeah, to date we've been focusing on the Aura L side of calibration, which is mainly on stream flow. So I've been looking at incorporating things like recharge observations from various studies around Australia in that calibration, and also things like base flow in the calibration metrics that you use for Aura L. We're also looking at actually inserting the water tables in in highly monitored areas in the Aura L model for the water table, so that for national water accounting purposes that you do actually honour the observations essentially. So, but we'd also be looking at calibrating to those levels through time. But to date, it's been more about getting a system that can handle calibration over 700 catchments at a go using a gridded model, which is the first task. But through time, I'm moving towards joint calibration of that system with Aura R and G.
We've done some sensitivity analysis. We've got some concept of how much influence the Aura G calibration of the groundwater store would have when it gets moved in. So we don't think it'll make too much difference to the calibration.
Mark Henry. Just two things. The first is, given the parameters you have, do you think you'd be within plus minus 100% of accuracy, or say 150%. And the second one is, given the fact that you've chosen to go by catchment, don't you think you've eliminated the necessity of modeling groundwater? Because groundwater system, surface water systems, you can define the catchment, but groundwater systems do not necessarily respect traditional catchment boundaries.
Yeah, another good question. I might start with the second, then come back and you can remind me what the first one was. So coming back to the other gentleman's question about the joint calibration, eventually that'll be done on a joint system where we're not just looking at unimpaired catchments per se, but we're looking about impaired catchments using or are for other areas that we do have that aren't unimpaired, if you like, but also groundwater systems and observations in those areas. So it won't just be for a set of catchments in upland areas. Sorry, the second part of the question, the first question, I can't quite recall.
Just having an estimate of how far out it would be, because I might be absolutely wrong, but I think the system will be well off.
You're talking about for streamflow estimation, for example, in the first instance.
Yes.
So in many areas, it's so currently we've got a system that's calibrated predominantly in the MDB, and it performs well there, but not very well in places like Perth where we weren't using data. But now we're bringing that data on board. It is coming up within less than 100% sort of